This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price. Because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/knowhow and entering the promo code KNOWHOW. Today on Know-How,
Protecting your credit.
And getting smarter with your finances.
welcome to Know-How. It's a Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I am Father Robert Balliser, and I'm joined by these two, Miss Megan Maroney and Mr. Jason Howell. Thank you for joining me. This is we haven't done one of these since like a back to school episode a year ago.
Yeah, it seems like forever, but it's nice to be reunited once again.
You know,
so much has happened in a year. So many hows have been knowed.
I think we've all grown.
Yeah,
we've grown.
Yeah,
me,
it's just actually very
a couple
true.
of sizes actually. Yeah, so this is a good thing. Oh, but I brought you on because, well, you've had the most exposure to something that's happening right now to, I'd say, half of the adult population of the United States, and that is everyone is freaking out about their credit because of a little boo-boo that
boo-boo
that one of our credit bureaus had. You covered this on TNT pretty extensively, right?
Oh, yes, we did. Yeah, Equifax is in... He's on the naughty list. It's on the naughty list. No Christmas present from Santa this year. Yeah, they really messed up. I feel like all of our stuff is out there. And, I mean, I wouldn't even consider myself an Equifax customer. It's not like I had a choice.
Right.
I'm going to choose them over someone else. You know, anytime you need to get a mortgage or anytime you need to get a credit card or anything, like you just send off all your information. And I guess we were just crossing our fingers that they would be more protective than they were.
Right. And this is really kind of built into a big debate. Some people are saying, oh, don't pile it on Equifax. You know, we've all done stupid things with security. But, you know, there is this thing.
We've all leaked millions of social security numbers in full, coupled with driver's licenses. We've all been there, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Totally.
come on. You can't get mad about them for that.
that was growing up, but now we're adults. We moved on from that.
Right. So you're saying that maybe we shouldn't even use Social Security numbers anymore, like that, you know, that we're. I mean, that's what Russell, our IT guy, said. He was like, it's bad to use as you know, as a way to ID yourself. And I was like, well, then what's your Social Security number? And then he told it to me.
Oh.
Like that's how.
But do you remember it?
No,
oh,
of course not.
See, he knew he was safe in telling you because he wouldn't remember it.
But it's just like that's how little he trusts the Social Security number as something that's at all secret.
Well, I know that you've covered this, but the Social Security system was never, ever designed to be our unique identifying number. In fact, if you go to the Social Security Administration, they'll tell you, no, don't give people this number. This is not an identifier. And yet we all use it as an identifier because we all have it. And you've got all the tech pundits who are saying, well, if anything good can come out of this, maybe it will be the fact that we all recognize that that doesn't work anymore. And we need to move past. We need to start looking at something that can be changed easily in your lifetime, something that can be maintained. And, you know, Equifax, it was weird. I was watching Screensavers, and Leo Laporte actually said, if a corporation is an entity, Equifax actually deserves the death penalty, which is okay. That's pretty strong. But in a sense, yes, they do, because they had one job. And their one job was to keep safe all the information that they collected in exchange for being able to make money off of that data.
Yeah.
They didn't do it.
I mean, the problem is, and what we're realizing time and time again, is that our information, our data is such a valuable commodity. It's a currency of sorts, and it's traded very freely. We're getting numb to this fact, this repeated fact that our information is not protected in the same way that we might, you know, hope to protect our money or other things that are near and dear to our heart and as important as this. And the companies that have and command and trade in all of this information are not doing what they need to do to protect that. So, I mean, what is the alternative? It's very easy to just kind of throw your hands in the air and just kind of give up, but you can't because it's all very important. You don't know what the long-term ramification of that is.
There's so many knee-jerk reactions of, well, I'm going to make it so that they can never make money off my data. And it's like, I mean, we're going to cover this in the episode, but a lot of us don't realize how much we depend on these credit bureaus. And it's not just for applying for credit. It could be something as simple as getting a job. Most jobs today, they will actually check your credit history to make sure there's nothing shady, that you're not going to be stealing from the company. Well, if you got rid of the credit bureaus, that comes up as a huge red flag. But okay, if they want to find out more, you can always watch the TNT episodes that dealt with the Equifax breach. You could watch Twit, you could watch the new screensavers. But today, what we wanted to do is to give people actual actionable information that they could take and they could use to protect themselves. Are we down?
We're down. I'm down.
All right.
I don't know about anybody else. I'm down.
We got to start with the basics. You've heard about the fraud alert. This is sort of the most simple level of protection that you can give yourself. It's also free. Now, the nice thing about the fraud alert is once you place a fraud alert with one of the CRCs, the credit reporting companies, they have to share it with the others. So one fraud alert will go to all of the, well, it's big three. There's actually 4 in the United States, but it's really the big 3 credit unions. Now, if you place a fraud alert, there's actually different levels that you can use. The first one is, it's a service, again, offered by all the CRCs. It's good for 90 days. They say that it's to be used if you have concerns that you might be the victim of ID theft or credit fraud. And any lender who wants to open up a new line of credit on account that has a credit fraud placed on it is given a number that they should call to contact you to verify your information. So it's not denying them the information, but if you put a credit fraud alert on any of your CRCs, they spread it to the other CRCs. And anytime someone wants to check, they'll get the data, but then they'll also be notified there's a credit fraud alert on this account. You should call the actual person to make sure that they are the ones requesting the service that you're trying to serve.
And that only lasts for 90 days. At the end of 90 days, I imagine you're alerted that it's dropped off and everything goes...
Sadly, no.
No?
At the end of the 90 days, you should remember that it's the end of the 90 days and do it.
Yeah,
Wait a minute, we have to take responsibility for ourselves?
Well, just press that little plus on your Google thing. Remind me, the little finger with the string on it. Right? That reminders are your friends.
Yes. Yeah, calendar. Actually, Cortana, oh, sorry about that. The Microsoft Voice Assistant will actually receive an email from a CRC that says when your expiration date is, and it will remind you. That was actually cool. When it added it to my my Outlook, I was like, oh, I didn't even put that in there. Oh, cool. But okay, there's
one question I have about that. Is this a preemptive thing? Like, obviously, in the situation of Equifax, like, we know there's serious damage, serious information. This is probably a good idea for everyone to just to protect themselves from that. But I mean, like, you lose your credit card or something. I mean, how? Like, what is the level of seriousness at which you then decide, I'm going to put a fraud alert on my account?
This is such a basic level that it can really be any time you fear that you might be the victim of ID theft or that there might be questionable activity on your credit report. So I mean, it's not a great preventative measure, but at least it's there. At least creditors will know that they should check that there might be something going on wrong. So I mean, and we'll talk about the other levels, but this is really just sort of a feel-good type thing. Now, 90 days doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't, because you do have to renew it 4 times a year. There is something called an extended fraud alert. Now, again, this is offered by all of the CRCs, the credit reporting companies. It's to be used if you are the victim of ID theft or credit fraud. So the first one is if you think you might be. If you're actually actively having someone open up lines of credit in your name or open up a credit card or someone is pretending to be you, then you can put an extended fraud alert. That is good for 7 years.
And you have to have like a police report number or something to do that, right?
Precisely, yeah. You can't just call them up and say, no, I don't want the regular one, I want the extended. They'll ask you for the report number, the fraud report. That's actually easy to get. I've done that 3 times in my life. And essentially, you call up the police and you say, this is what's happening. They'll give you a number. That's the number to get the 7 years.
I mean, we've definitely had issues where suddenly we realize there's a fraudulent charge in one of our accounts. And we're like, okay, something's going on here. I know we didn't put that there. That's what this would be for?
Yeah. But again, you would have to go through the step of getting the report.
Some
people don't want to do that.
Right.
But the nice thing is, instead of 90 days and you have to renew it every 4 times a year, it's good for 7 years. That's pretty well.
It's a long time. What is the long-term kind of ramification of that from down the line, you want to get a loan, you want to buy a house or whatever, like as the person under which this fraud alert is active,
right,
what does that mean for me?
It's actually still pretty low impact because remember, a fraud alert doesn't keep them from looking at your credit. It just says, this is the information we have on this person. There's a fraud alert. You should contact the person at this number to verify that it's
be more alert. Yeah.
Right. And so there is still a level of trust you have to have. You have to trust that the creditors are actually going to do the right thing and actually reach out to you.
Yeah.
Which they actually will, because if they don't and something bad happens, then they are accountable. They're legally
I was going to say, it's too bad that when there is a fraud alert, they aren't like, are they required by law to check in with you? They should be, I would say.
They're not. It's a guideline, but no good bank or creditor would not open up a line on an identity with a fraud alert without contacting the person.
Right.
Just because it opens them up to liability.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the other thing is, when you do that, if you get the extended fraud alert, it gives you 2 free credit reports from each CRC per 12 months. And people think, oh yeah, I can get one credit report every year. No, you can get 1 credit report every year from each of the 3. So you can actually get 3, actually 4 now. You can get 4 credit reports per year. It's just a little easier if you've got the extended fraud alert. Now there is one more level of fraud alert, and it doesn't apply to the vast majority of our audience, but it's for active military. If you are active military, you can get a fraud alert. It lasts for a year, so it's not as long as an extended fraud alert, but it's really designed so that if you're deploying, you don't have to worry about someone taking over your identity while you're gone. Yeah, and that's just good practice. Now, have the two of you, you've already put your fraud alerts, right?
I did put my fraud alerts. I put them on all 3. I did not know you only had to do one.
Yeah, just
I did
one.
them all, just to be safe.
Jason? No, Jason, come on.
Well, what? I didn't say anything.
I did mine, and I told my husband I did it, and he was like, "Oh, thanks." I was like, "I can't do it for you. You got to do it for yourself." So same with you, Jason. I can't do it for you. You got to do it yourself.
I know.
Well, there are 4 of us.
I got to do it for myself. That's why I haven't done it.
There are 4 of us in the studio right now, so the chances are the 2 of us have our information exposed.
Well, but I went to the Equifax website, and it didn't tell me I was on the list.
Okay,
really?
Yeah. It didn't. It just said check back another time.
Oh.
It didn't outright specifically say you were affected.
That should have been the first tip. Don't go to anything that has anything to do with Equifax.
Then how do you put a fraud alert on?
Because if you do it with any of the other, like TransUnion, it will automatically go to all 3.
Now, mind you, just so you know, I did this immediately after hearing about it at the very beginning of the whole thing. So I was like, oh well, of course I'm going to go check out the link that they provided, and I did it through their posting because I initially saw that page linked to on Twitter, and I went to it with no extra context. And I mean, the page didn't even say anything about any of the fraud charges or the discovery. It was just like, here's a field, enter in most of your social security number. I was like, wow, this looks really shady. I'm going to go to their official posting, and sure enough, it linked to it. So then I was like, okay, well, this is their official thing, so I'm going to do it. But yeah, it never told me that I was affected, and I think wrongly, I think I just assumed, oh, okay, well then there's less urgency for me. I realize I need to do this. I just haven't yet.
Well, you know what? We're going to give you a really easy way to do it.
Okay.
You called in,
That's
right?
what I've been waiting for.
No, I did it on the website.
Oh, you did it online? Okay. A lot of people are calling in. You don't have to do that. They've actually fixed that, so that's quite good. Now, if you're going to do this, I actually prefer TransUnion. I won't say they're my favorite CRC, but they're my least despicable CRC, I guess.
That's nice. They should put that on their website.
They've been pretty responsible. Their security score isn't great, but it's definitely better than Equifax. If you go to the link there, this is fraud.transunion.com. Now, you will have to – no, it's the link, not the picture. You will have to create a new account. You will have to give them some of your identifying information because they have to verify that it's you. So Social Security, address, they'll ask you if you've changed addresses in the last 2 years. They'll give you a couple of questions just to make sure that it's actually you because, of course, you don't want other people to be able to get in on your account. But once you're in there, it's a super simple process. If you go to the first picture, it's you just click on Initial Fraud Alert, and then you give them 1 or 2 phone numbers that are given to any creditor who wants to open up a new account in your name. That creditor should be able to take that phone number, contact you, and ask you directly, are you the person who's trying to open up a new line of credit, a new credit card, this new car loan, home, mortgage, whatever it might be? Now, once you get that, if you switch to the second picture, this is it. You're done. You're now set up for a fraud alert. It will tell you the expiration date. It will tell you the number that you've set up to give to the creditor who tries to open an account in your name, and you're done. It's this, for me, TransUnion's is the simplest, the least painful process to get a fraud alert placed on your account. Which one did you, but you went to all three, right?
I went to all three. Now, but you say there's a fourth. I did not go to that
There's
fourth.
a fourth, but they're tiny. They're little guys. It's okay. There is another thing, and you've heard this mentioned, and that's a credit freeze. You were asking about the impact that a fraud alert might have on your credit. Well, where the impact really comes in is when the credit freeze. And I know there's a lot of people who are so ticked that they automatically jump to the credit freeze. They think, I'm going to stick it to them. Hold on. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but you should know everything that goes into a credit freeze before you actually turn it on. If you go ahead and go to the website there, Alex, a credit freeze is different from a fraud alert because in a fraud alert, the creditors are notified to contact you, but they can still see your information. In a freeze, a creditor can't even see the credit history without your authorization. You actually have to go back into the CRC that you've got the credit freeze, and you have to authorize that company to look at your credit report at all. So they can't get any information. This sounds like a great idea, except a lot of you don't realize how many times your credit report is checked. It happens a lot. And again, not just when you're opening up lines of credit. It can happen when you're applying for a job. It can happen when you're applying for a school. Essentially, anytime someone wants to make sure that you are who you say you are, they're going to check your credit report. And if you've got a credit freeze on, you have to authorize each and every single one of those. And you have to authorize each and every single one of those on every CRC on which you've placed a freeze. You haven't done a freeze yet, have you, Megan?
I have not done a freeze, no. But even that does sound onerous, but it also sounds better than getting your identity stolen.
This is true, and that's why some people are still going for it. And if you're going to go for it, just know that there's typically a $5 to $30 fee. I think right now Equifax is actually waiving that fee.
They are waiving the fee.
Which, yeah, it's the least they could do. They should also be paying the fee for the other CRCs, but we'll see. We'll wait for the lawsuit. They'll also give you a PIN, so that allows you to identify yourself when you're going back in to authorize a new user. The duration of the freeze really depends on state by state. Here in California, I think it's 7 years. And a lot of states, it's 7 years. But other states, it's frozen until you lift it. So you have to actively go in, enter in your PIN, and lift the credit freeze. And in some states, there's actually a fee to release the freeze. So they get you on the way in and they get you on the way out. And again, just be careful. If you are going to put a credit freeze, know that it is something that is active on a daily basis, and you're going to have to keep watch of it. Otherwise, you could miss credit opportunities. You can miss job opportunities. In the show notes, I've put the phone numbers for the three big CRCs, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So if you want to put a freeze, just call them up, tell them you want the freeze, and they'll go. And unlike the fraud, it's not enough to put a freeze on one. You actually have to do it on each one individually. Yeah?
By the way, I'm almost done with my fraud alert.
So that's what you've been doing during this? I love this.
I wanted to see how fast it would be.
It's easy, right?
Yeah, I'm almost there.
super,
Although I hit
super
another
painless.
series of your progress. Step 1 of step 2, 50% done. But I think once I enter in my phone number, I'll be done. So it was pretty easy. It was like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And we've got CR1 in the chat room who brings up a very good point. He had $50,000 worth of fraud done against his identity. And for him, it absolutely makes sense to do a freeze, even with all the pain. Like you said, what is it worth, the peace of mind, knowing that no one is going to get in? No, and in fact, the CRCs hate it when you put a freeze because that takes away from their business. They can't give out your credit report information, which is how they make money, even though they are making a fee on you.
So on the Innovis, Innovis, is that the fourth one?
Yeah, the little teeny tiny
They
one.
say there's no charge for the addition, temporary lift, or removal of a security freeze.
And that's again because they're competing with the big ones, and they're essentially saying, "Hey, come play with us."
They're like the
Freeze your
target
credit
of
with us.
CRCs.
Yeah. Okay, so before we move on, we're actually going to start jumping into apps. We got together, we bumped our heads together. It hurt, and we started thinking about apps that we could use to perhaps increase your awareness of your credit score, perhaps to monitor transactions happening in your financial life a little more closely, and also to pick up some very good habits. we'll talk about this in a bit, but both of you are parents, and you're at that time when you got to start letting your kids kind of get responsible with finances. Less so for you. I mean, I'm pretty sure your daughters don't have a stock or credit cards yet, right?
They don't have credit cards, they don't have stock, but they do get a monthly allowance. And my 7-year-old did just finish saving up for like an $80 pair of inline skates.
Wow.
So we're working on it in terms that their age is.
But that's awesome.
Can understand.
And do your boys have credit cards yet?
They have debit cards, but they're not allowed to use them. And you have to be 13, and they're only 12. So my daughter she's 14, and she has a debit card. She's allowed to use it. Yeah, there's some, because yeah, they need. We live in a cashless society, so I'd like to just have them use their iPhones, and they would like to do that too. But it's important to teach them about cash money.
Cash money. Yeah, and it's like you said, just the act of saving up that $80 to buy something, that's huge. And I do these seminars at our various parishes, the financial seminars, and it's amazing because when I originally created them, I made them for students. I'm like, okay, young adults, they need to learn how to do the finances. The largest component of my audience was always adults. You know, these are people in their 30s and their 40s who never learned this as kids.
Well, no, you don't learn this stuff in school. So it comes down to the parents, you know, by and large, which is just a crazy thing. The more that I think about it, how ridiculous it is that you go through, 13 years of standard education, and yet you come out the end and you don't know how to manage your finances because they just don't focus any attention to that at all. They really don't spend time on it.
I remember learning how to write a check.
Oh, that's pretty basic stuff, though, right? Like really managing the stuff on the back end. And I mean, it's so much more complex than that. You know, balancing a checkbook, that's a good start for sure. Yeah. But it goes so much deeper than that.
Well, they do have classes. One of my daughter's friends is taking a class on, life skills. And it's like how to manage a mortgage and all those things. But, I don't know. I feel like I do feel like parents should teach that. And then that's something that you could learn in a YouTube video or online. I don't necessarily believe that's the right place. School is the right place, but
it's really practical experience, and the practical experience comes from being able to get something you really wanted without having to go into hog on a credit card. And I make fun of that, but a lot of people don't realize that.
No,
it's like
everybody does that. A standard operating procedure for teenagers because they don't understand. Like I did it.
Yeah,
I got that credit card when I was just old enough, and just graduating and everything, and it was like, cool, I'm starting my life of debt. And we accept that. We accept that that's just the way it is, and it's stupid. It's not just the way it is. We just haven't been educated on how to do it differently.
And see, my father, he was big on this. When I got my first credit card, he said, okay, here's the thing though. You never charge anything that you don't have the money to pay for when the bill comes in.
Right.
And the one time I didn't have that, I can't talk about what happened because I think it's actually called child abuse these days. But it's still to me that this credit card. It's not a magical money fountain. It only links back to what you already have.
Yeah.
We'll get back into that. The reason why we're talking about this is because all of these apps that we're going to be bringing up, and the fraud protection and the credit freeze information that we're giving you, it matters not an iota if you don't actually know what's going on in your financial life. And I know this is kind of straying a little bit from tech, but believe me, we're going to rein it back in. If you go ahead and go to the last link in this segment, Alex, the first thing you need to do is do the fraud alert or the freeze. The second thing you need to do is go ahead and get your credit report. A lot of you probably have never gotten your credit report, and that's kind of criminal because it's free. You can get a free credit report from all 3 of the big credit reporting bureaus once a year from annualcreditreport.com. And the nice thing about this is you can rotate it. Since you can get one from each of the big 3 every year, you could actually get one every 4 months from the same website. And that just lets you, I mean, it's something that you should store in your drawer because you can do differential diagnosis. You pull up the old credit report and the new credit report and you go, oh, wait a minute, there's an extra line here. That's how you know what's going on. Because unfortunately, a lot of people don't even know how to read a credit report. The easiest way is to compare them and see what's changed. And over time, 2-3 years, you can actually start deciphering that information. Do you get your credit report on a regular basis?
I do not get my credit report on a regular basis. I did. I was going to get it recently, and I did get it actually. But then I wasn't clear whether I should get it from everybody. Because like you said, you can get it from everyone, so you can get 4 a year. And there was some advice, I think, on the FTC website or something that you should, especially now, you should get them, like you said, over time so that you can compare it. So don't get them all 4 at once. So I got it from somebody, I can't remember. And you're right, I didn't really know how to read it.
Right, and it's exactly, because congratulations on getting it, because a lot of people don't even do that. But when you get that credit report, it's like, oh, look, numbers.
Yeah, there's some green boxes, some okays. There wasn't anyone saying, like, don't buy that dress from Banana Republic you've been looking at.
And there's no explanations. It's like, okay, from this thing, I have this much debt or this much of a credit line. And I'm like, is that normal? Because a lot of us don't know that our credit cards, although they may have something on the face, they might actually belong to a different financial institution. Or they might have been sold to a different financial institution if you've already gone into arrears and into debt. And so that credit report can be scary because you're like, oh my gosh, I have all these accounts open. It's like, no, it's just you didn't know what you actually had open.
Right. Well, that's the thing. My parents always taught me, pay off your credit card bill every month. Like you said, don't buy anything that you can't afford. But they never taught me, like, don't open too many credit cards. Because that's the thing. Like, I don't like to say no. So it's like whenever you go to the store, like, do you want this credit card? Like, okay. And then, you know, the first time you try to get a loan and they're like, no, because you have these 12 credit cards open. I'm like, but I didn't spend anything on them. But just getting them, and no one taught me that, like the specifics of that.
And we're going to go into that when we start talking about like your FICO score, because a lot of people don't realize what makes up that score. And there's a reason why it fluctuates from reporter to reporter, because they all look at open debt, how much debt you have, how much serviceable debt you have, and the type of debt that you're incurring, and that drives your score up or down. I mean, you've seen the magical score at least on a few of your financial apps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, if you've gone through, you know, getting a mortgage, you worry about these things. You wonder how much it actually matters and everything. And I mean, over time, it definitely does matter. So
that's the worst feeling. I had a couple who the very first time they ever saw their credit report score was when they applied for a mortgage right after they got married. And both of them had horrible credit. They had no idea why. It's like, well, you probably should have known that before you went into this process. But yeah, okay.
They had no idea why, because they made choices that made it bad, or because there was something weird happening underneath?
No, just because they had made bad choices.
Okay.
They were paying all their debts,
aware,
but they had been revolving credit and then moving it from, and you can't do that. And every time you do that, you take a huge hit on your score.
Yeah, and you think that something very insignificant that happened 10 years ago doesn't matter, and then you see your credit report and you're like, oh, that's red for a reason. That 1 month of red actually changes things.
Well, do you remember there was maybe about 15 or 20 years ago, there was a huge surge of bankruptcies, personal bankruptcies that were getting declared, because there were all these little companies who were saying, it's the best way to get out of debt. And it's like, yeah, you get out of debt, but your credit's busted for the next 2 decades.
Yeah, totally. And what did you learn? Nothing.
Need to learn nothing. Folks, we are going to be learning more, but first we want to go ahead and take a moment to thank the sponsor of this episode of Know How. Now, did you know that the average human spends 18 hours a day in bed? That's not true, but it feels like it sometimes, right? Wouldn't you like to be curled up in your bed? Wouldn't you like to have a warm comforter over the top? Wouldn't you like to be in La La Land, snoozing and enjoying the world of imagination? Well, folks, if you've got a lumpy bed or a hard mattress or something that just doesn't match your style, you get none of that, which is why we're so happy to have Casper as a sponsor of Know How. Now, Casper is an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost. Casper is revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing the savings directly to you, to the consumer. Their mattresses are obsessively engineered, and they're at a fair price. Casper is made of supportive memory foams for a sleep surface with just the right sink and just the right bounce. It's not going to be too soft. You're not going to sink in too deep. You're not going to sweat the night through. Plus, it's got that breathable design that helps you to sleep cool, and you can regulate your temperature throughout the night, so you're not constantly tossing and turning. A Casper mattress provides long-lasting comfort and support, and you can buy it easily online and completely risk-free. We got our new Casper mattress over here, and we tried it out. It's so soft and comfortable because they understand the importance of truly trying out a mattress that in all reality, you should spend a third of your life on. Casper offers free delivery and painless returns with a 100-day return period. So you don't have to lie down in a showroom. You can actually set it up in your bedroom where you're actually going to be sleeping and try it out. See if it's right for you. And did you know that statistically, lying on a bed in a showroom has no correlation whatsoever to whether or not it's the right bed for you? Casper recently introduced the Casper Wave mattress, which features a natural geometry support system and a new top layer. Casper mattresses uphold the highest environmental protection standards and are made in the United States of America. Free shipping and returns to the US and Canada, and now the UK. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to have the best night's sleep ever. Get a Casper mattress today. You can save an additional $50 towards a mattress purchase by going to casper.com/knowhow and entering the promo code knowhow. That's casper.com/knowhow with promo code knowhow. Terms and conditions apply. And we thank Casper for their support of Know How. All right, let's jump into it. We've been talking about credit reports. We just had this nice little interesting discussion from both a parental and a consumer side about what it takes to actually manage your money so you understand what's going on in your finances. Let's run through some of our favorite apps. Megan, I understand that you've got something on iOS that you've been enamored with. We're not going to show your actual app because it has a lot of information that you don't want to be on the stream, but tell us about it.
I use Mint. I love it. I've probably been using it for, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years. I've tried others. I've tried more smaller apps. There's an app called Digit, which might have even been bought by Mint. I tried more apps that are more aimed at the millennial that will send you emoji whenever you have spent money, that sort of thing. All those seemed just a little not good enough for me. Mint, I love. I love it because it will alert me when I've spent too much money on different things. So, for example, last month it said, you spent $1,000 on office supplies. And I thought, oh, yeah, because that's back to school supplies are super expensive. But it was, you know, I went and I checked. I was like, really? Did we spend? And yes, we did spend all that between my 3 kids in school and my husband, who's a teacher and buys his own school supplies. We did spend about that much money. So, yeah, it's really nice. I enter all my bank information. I enter all my credit card information, and it's all FDIC secured. So I obviously, anything can happen at any time, and it is a little, it can be a little scary for people to enter all that information. But Mint has been around for a long time.
They're not a fly-by-night.
Yeah, and they are secured. So if something were to go wrong, you're not just out all of your money. So, and of course, we should have like some sort of FDIC for your personal information. It seems like,
right.
but we don't have that. So yeah, I set up little budgets. So like I have a clothing budget. That's where I can end up spending more than I should, spending my kids' college tuition. So I put a certain amount of money that I want to spend in just for clothes, and then if I go over it, it will alert me. And how does it know that I'm buying clothes? Because it's smart, and it knows what stores sell clothes. Like it won't, if I buy a shirt at Target or something, it won't know that. But if it knows it's a clothing store, and you go through it and you teach it, if you have a regular bill, you teach that that is something that I can write off on my taxes, or that is something that you put everything in a category if they don't really know, and then it knows for the future. So I can't recommend this higher. It will alert you when there's anything weird going on. If you spend, like I said, if you spend more money than you normally do, it'll let you know, and then you can go in. And when you're doing your taxes and there are things you can write off for your work, that makes it really easy too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the things about Mint that I've always really liked is the hooks. So once you get your personal information in there, and yes, it can be a little scary, but once it's in there, like you said, it can start pulling all of the different financial transactions you make. And a lot of your credit card companies will actually group together purchases based on what it thinks they are, and it just it takes that information. And going back to a discussion we just had, this would be a great app to give to your kids on a phone, because it does do the budgeting aspect, and it makes them realize, hey, you know what? If you spend too much on candy or sweets for this month, you're not going to be able to buy this thing that you want to buy three months down the road.
$500 on bubble gum.
It happens.
It does happen. Actually, it would be more $500 on iOS apps or Android apps. What were you doing?
In-app purchases.
Yeah. And anytime I have software that can help to teach the lessons to young people, to your kids, to be responsible with finances, that heads off so many problems in the future. Because if they know what they're spending and what they're spending it on, then they can look at that credit report and go, okay, yeah, I see that. I know where this is from. And oh, no, this is definitely not me, and I have to go report that. Yeah. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Jason, you've got something like that, although it's got an interesting name. It's not Mint.
Well, no, and I had tried Mint years ago, and for whatever reason, it just did not click for me. I didn't stick with it. I didn't refer to it often enough. Maybe it was just like too early for me, and I wasn't paying as much attention. Probably about 1.5 years ago, we started on a piece of software. It's a service cross-platform called YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget. It's actually in many ways very similar to Mint. They kind of accomplish a lot of similar goals. But what it's really designed to be, it's designed to be kind of a digital replacement for the envelope system, which is essentially that you give every dollar that you have a job. So
Hey.
and the goal is to get to the point where with YNAB, you're budgeting with money you already have instead of budgeting for money that's coming in.
I like this.
And so in essence, you're never, working in the backwards. You're working in front of the train. You're pulling the train along. So it teaches you how to be aware of your money and your spending, how to budget your money, how to budget with the money that you already have is a really big key. I don't know if you're getting the feed from my phone right now. I went ahead and casted to show you the app on Android a little bit. This is a know-how budget. This is a fake budget that I
love that. So you've got $410 that you have to assign work to.
Right. So I have 410 to be budgeted dollars. Now you can see down here is my budget, right? And you can see mortgage. I'm 0 under the available. That's because if I go to my account, my fake bank account, where is it? The mortgage payment went through. Where did that go through?
Oh no.
Rental, it's in there as rental agency. Okay, so that's rent. Never mind. $1,200 in the rent category. So this, you can sync it up to all your accounts, so as they come through, all this happens automatically. But basically, you can see here, electric, right? It says I have $3 available. That's because I budgeted $100. And if you go into the accounts, you can see my bill was only $97. That left me with $3 extra in that account that I had already taken out of my available money for electric. So then I can, go down and be like, oh man, look at medical. I budgeted $50, but I'm $297 over. My medical bill was $52.97, and I can actually transfer the $3 and move that over into covering medical. So you're like taking it out of the medical, you're taking it out of one envelope and putting it into another. Computer replacement, for example, if I had a goal and I really want to get a computer, I need to get it in 9 months, but I don't have the money right now. You can go into here. Let's see here. How do I do that? There we go. You go into details and you can create a goal. And I can say, my computer, target category balance by date. I want to get this in 9 months, and it's going to cost me $1,000. So you can put it in here, $1,000. I want to have it by March, April, May, June, July 1st. Go ahead and do that, save the goal. And now going forward, every month, a certain, to basically fill that category. Why is it not giving me that? Oh, budget another $90.91 to stay on track. So I'd go ahead and take from my available funds $90.91, and this month I've satisfied my requirement. Right. You can have that happen automatically. And if you're using money you already have, you're not going into debt on any of this stuff. You're just playing with the money that you have and figuring out how you do it. Are you saving for a vacation? It imports from your credit card. So you can get into a system where you do use your credit card like your checking account. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the month, it's being paid off anyways. It's all accounted for in here in the budget categories. And then you get miles. You can play with the system and really get creative with it. And it's taken us a long time to get used to the system of it. But once you do, it's awesome. Like it's not so automated that it's easy to disconnect and not be aware of what's happening. It still requires you to go in there and make sure that things that are automatically importing are done so effectively and correctly. you clear it, and you reconcile, and it's awesome to reconcile because suddenly this
it feels good, right?
page of information just goes to zero, and you're like, I dealt with that. I don't need to look at it anymore. It's awesome. I love it.
That's part of the gamification app.
Yeah,
a gamification style of app, which I love. You see things in the green and you feel better about yourself, and then you see that zero at the end of the month. You're like, okay, fantastic, I did my job. But what I love about that is one of the principles that is so difficult to get people to switch over to, that you should not count on the money coming in.
Right. That's a hard switch.
You have to assume at some point something horrible will happen and you won't get the money coming in. So will that 1 month or that 1 quarter put you on the streets? And people can't deal with that. And one of the biggest things that I have to do in these seminars is say you have to arrive at that point at which you could get no money for the next month or 2 months or 3 months.
Yeah.
And you'd still be okay. The time to figure out that you don't have enough money is not after you no longer have money coming in.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And that's been a big, at least for me personally, that's been a big switch that we've been kind of trying to pay attention to over the last year. But, getting to like 6 months of coverage, because you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. Stuff happens to everybody. It's guaranteed to happen at some point. Be prepared for it. And systems like this, and for Mint around saving and making it automatic, and my next app ties into this as well, kind of takes a little bit of the hard work out of it. And if you can automate it, I find for me, that's all the difference. If I don't ever see the money and it happens, and I check in to make sure that it's still okay, that there's nothing weird happening. But if it happens before I see it, great. It's going to happen.
Yeah, precisely. And that's the same sort of financial information that you can instill in your boys, especially as they start to move into having their own debit card, having maybe their own credit cards. It's the whole, you can't spend what you don't already have. Yeah, go figure. All right, so we've got that. That's YNAB. You need a budget. Next up, it's an app that actually both of us picked, and that's the Wells Fargo app. Of course, this only works if you have a Wells Fargo account. And yes, I know Wells Fargo has a lot of their own financial scandal going on right now. However, I've been using them for the better of 30 years. And so I've kind of grown up with them. And their app is actually pretty good. Can you talk about a few of the things that you like about the app?
Well, I like alerts for the app. Like I said before, I did download a bunch of different apps that would automatically take money out of your bank and put it in their own bank. And I thought, why don't I just use my bank's app, the Wells Fargo bank app? And I love it. So I wasn't using the alerts, but I just recently turned them on, because that's in this time when you just don't know if someone's going to be opening an account or has your bank information. It's great to get alerts anytime any money goes out of your account. So even this morning, I woke up and I pulled down my notification center on my iPhone, and there were 2 alerts, $50 and $80 taken out of my Wells Fargo account. And I was like, what is that? And then I went and I looked. It took, one button, and I figured out what it was. It was a recurring payment that I have. And so I was like, whew. And I think that's good, just to know where your money goes, just to be alerted. And yes, iPhone alerts and computer alerts can get overwhelming, and then you stop paying attention to them. So that's part of my digital cleanse. I say, like, get all your notifications, turn off all the ones that you don't use. But right now, especially, turn on your notifications with your bank app. That's what I love, because it will tell you if there's any suspicious stuff. I mean, there are all kinds of alerts that you can do. You can do anytime money gets taken out, anytime someone tries to change your password, anytime someone tries to change your username, anytime someone tries to get into your account from a device that you've never used before. All of those things. I heard someone in the chat room saying that Mint wouldn't let them have two-factor on their bank. I have two-factor on my bank, and Mint still checks it. So yeah, it depends on the bank, I guess. So I say turn on the alerts. They're in settings. There's privacy alerts. There's regular alerts. Turn them all on, and you'll just have a peace of mind.
Yeah, Reverb Mike he's expressing something that I think a lot of people have.
Yeah.
It's the notification fatigue.
Absolutely.
And I get it. I totally get it. However, at the moment, this is an active exploit. the breach at Equifax is going to be affecting people for a long, long time. And yes, notifications can be incredibly annoying, especially when they just keep coming because they've stacked up because you haven't checked your device in a while. However, what you don't want is the notification miss that, oh, someone just charged $10,000 to your credit card or open up a new line of account. That is a notification you definitely want to receive. If you go and go to the cast, I've got my Wells Fargo app right now. So this is some of the basic information that it's going to show you. It does some awesome things like down here at the lower right-hand corner, I can deposit checks by just taking a picture with them. I can also send money electronically with Zelle, which actually has better fees rates than say PayPal. But what I like about this, and again, Megan was right, I can absolutely set all my notifications. When do I want to get the alerts? Do I want to get alerts when there's money drawn from my account when it's normally not drawn? Or do I when there's a new electronic transfer? I get to set up what notifications I actually want. And it will even do things like you can view your credit score. All of the big banks are now actually giving you the ability to do this inside their app and inside of their ecosystem. They're going out and they're getting your credit report from the big three or maybe even all four, and then they do a composite based on how they create the score. The other thing that I really like about this, and this might be something to give to your kids, is the card-free ATM. Now, I'm not going to put it in because then all of you would be able to answer access my ATM, but I can get a one-time code that will work on the Wells Fargo system. I don't have to carry a card, and I also don't have to worry about entering this in public because it doesn't matter if you get the code. It only works the one time I used it. After that, it's invalid. So this, I'm using Wells Fargo. We're using Wells Fargo as an example because I think they've done this right. They may have screwed up a lot of other stuff, but they've got online right. I think when you start shopping around for banks, if they don't actually offer this basic amount of functionality, it's not right for you. I remember when choosing a bank always used to be about, well, how much of a return rate are they going to give me? Now it's sort of, well, are you going to be able to let me access my accounting information? Yeah. All right. So that's it. Wells Fargo app. You've got you've got another one with another funny name.
Well, yes. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Who's got the funny name? That's right. It's my app.
It's all you.
Yep, it's all me. So this is an app that I will admit I have not used personally, but I've heard of it a decent amount, and I really appreciate the approach. This is another app that's maybe less about security features and more about kind of savings practices, and it's called Capital, but it's spelled with a Q. So I guess it could be called Quapital, which maybe is not a very good idea. Let me set up Cast here.
Is someone from Quapital actually knows a better pronunciation? If you could
I think it's Capital.
Tweet it to us.
Capital. Anyways, they call it creative and automatic saving techniques, and really what it's all about is kind of setting up ways that you can, well, I mean, they say it, creatively save with a number of different kind of rules involved with it. So I think I'm sending my app to the Cast at this point. I hope so anyways. I connected to it. Not yet. It's not going. Let's see here. Let me try again. Is yours still
disconnected?
You're disconnected. How about now? There we go. Yay. Okay, so this is Quapital or Capital. So you can see here, if I wanted to, I could create a goal. Like I've got a goal. I want to either put a bunch of money in savings and just start saving, or I want to pay off some debts. I want to get something, go somewhere, do something. All these goals, I can create a number of these or just one. And I had actually created one, Hawaii, for $1,000, which for the family is not enough for Hawaii.
No, that's not enough for one person.
You're going by yourself.
Yes. But it's a nice round number. So anyways, so I tap in there. And what I can do here, I set that image myself. It did that automatically with a Google image import. I can create a rule. And this is where it kind of gets fun, right? It has a number of different ways for savings. There's the roundup rule, which is essentially save the change every single time I swipe my associated card. And so it'll just round it up to the nearest dollar. That extra change gets siphoned off into a savings account that I select. And over time that builds.
Wasn't that the plot of Superman 3?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, but put the plot of Superman 3 to work for you, Padre.
Okay, got it.
There's the spend less rule, which is you set a budget, and if you actually come in under that budget item, you're encouraged to come in under that budget item, because then the difference, that amount that you've already said, I'm okay with living without this money and having it go to this thing, ends up going to something else, the trip to Hawaii. Guilty pleasure rule, this is like a tax on yourself. It's like if I go to McDonald's and I buy a burger,
It charges me twice as
Charge
much.
me $5 extra and put that over there.
Oh, man.
It's like you're taxing yourself. You're penalizing yourself. But there you go. Set and forget rule, which is setting up a daily, a weekly, or a monthly deposit that just automatically happens over time. This next one's kind of similar to that. It's called the 52-week rule, and it works under the idea of the first week, $1 is going to be transferred over. The second week, $2 is going to be transferred over. And by the end, you're at 52 weeks.
It's all the money.
It snowballs really over time, right? So I guess you have to prepare for that. You know, about halfway through, you're sending a lot of extra money on a weekly basis over. But maybe that gives you time to kind of adjust your spending and adjust your living slowly over time so that adds up really fast. If this, then that rule, which essentially means you can assign anything and if this, then that to this. So maybe, you know, when you check in at the gym, if this, then that gets that. And it's like, hey, congratulations, you went to the gym. Here, have $5 towards Hawaii or whatever. You can get creative with that. And then there's the freelancer rule, which is good if you're a freelancer. You know that you need to set aside money for taxes. So it sets aside 30% of tax every time that you get paid. It does that automatically for you, so you don't have to think about it. And then the amount that you actually have in your checking account is the amount that you could actually spend. And it does this automatically. You associate it with your account. And you set the rule, you set the goal, and you just kind of let it go to work. And it's a good way to save.
I like that.
Yeah,
and
like
again, like Mint, it encourages you to budget on the safe side.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I mean, some of these rules are a little more aggressive than other ones. You know, I think the 52-week rule could get out of hand really quick because, like I said, you know, if you're at 30 weeks, that's $30 a week that's being saved. You better be prepared for that because that's a lot of money over time. But it can all add up.
And some of it is also, you've got to have a little bit of mental strength here because if you start thinking, well, I've got that $30 I can pull back, then you're kind of defeating the purpose of the app.
Absolutely.
Like, Megan, would you use that app if it charged you an extra 10% every time you went to go shop for clothing?
You mean really charged me or just pretend charged me?
No, well, pretend charge. Like take it and move it out of your active pile of cash.
I think I might use it. It's when the apps start charging actual money, which they do. Like a lot of them do. They have to make. I mean, we didn't talk about how Mint makes money. Like they'll advertise to you. They try to get you to sign up for their credit cards, and you know it's sort of in there. But I mean, but Digit was one of the apps. I think it was. I can't remember the name, but it just started charging. You know, a subscription fee. And then it's like, okay, well, then I'm not actually saving that money. That's real money, not money that's going to my trip to Hawaii.
I could see that as a startup pitch at Disrupt. Okay, it's like those other apps like Mint and QNAP and all those other things where we set aside money, but here's the difference. We actually take it.
We set it aside for ourselves.
Right.
It's actually, folks, that's probably coming. Yeah, very soon.
I should also state, because you said it earlier, Capital is also FDIC insured.
Yeah, that's actually the other thing. We always look for the FDIC stamp of approval. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything is safe, but it definitely doesn't mean that it's safer than if it was just a fly-by-night organization. Yeah. All right, let me go ahead and show off my next one. Again, this is very specific to the type of finances that I'm accustomed to, but I've had multiple credit cards, everything, you know, Discovery card, Visa, MasterCard. The one that I keep coming back to, mostly because it is great overseas, they don't charge me any foreign transaction fees, is American Express. They're also, by far, they will fight the hardest for you anytime you have a dispute. They're famous for that. That's actually why a lot of organizations don't want to take American Express. But if you go ahead and go to the cast, Alex, this is what my American Express screen looks like. So this is a biometric-enabled app. So on Android, it will work with the fingerprint scanner. And I'm assuming the next version that they're going to release on iOS is going to work with the 3D face scanner. So it's relatively secure. I can also add another factor of authentication if I'm worried. But from here, just like with the Wells Fargo app, I have the ability to set up notifications. So I can ask it to tell me every time there's a purchase. I love this. I actually get a notification at the top of my my phone within seconds of making a purchase, and that's either online or in person. And what I like about that is I've actually set it up so I have to click that right away. Otherwise, it actually starts going into fraud notification, which means that even if I'm not near my phone, if there's a transaction on my card and it's not me, it will automatically start to lock down the credit card.
Oh,
that is
cool.
that is a great feature.
That's nice.
Very well done. They've had to reconfigure it a little bit over the years just to make it a little more user friendly, but it works incredibly well. This brings up a notification anytime there is card activity, and that's what you really want. The only thing that saddens me, Jason, is I kind of want a screen like this, but for all of my credit cards, not just for each individual credit card, because I also have a Citibank MasterCard, and that's, I mean, that security is back in the 90s. I'm this close to dropping it just because their website is horrible to use, their app is useless, yeah, it's like, you know, I expect more. We're in the next millennium now.
We're in the future.
We're the future. Dang it. Give me my credit information. Yeah. All right. So that's the last one for those kinds of apps. We did have to bring one in that both you and Megan really liked. I actually still don't use it because I'm a Luddite and I keep all my passwords in a notepad document on my computer. But
what? Wait a minute. What? That's when the vinyl on the needle on the record goes.
It's actually it's on a Post-it note inside my. It's all encrypted. I created my own thing. I don't use LastPass, but I know the two of you do, right?
I do, yeah. Well, we use it here at Twit. We have the corporate account and I have the personal account. And I think that's key to security and actually not having to think so much about security all the time. And so I keep all of my passwords in here, and I keep my credit card information in here so that you don't have to keep that at all different websites. That you can just autofill your credit card information. You can autofill your address and your work address. It's super easy, and I know that a lot of people will say, like, don't keep all your passwords in one place. I don't keep my Apple ID password in there because I just feel like, well, I should have one account that's separate from LastPass. So if my LastPass were to be hacked, then I could still download movies from iTunes. I still have that.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of LastPass, the cross-platform aspect of it. The fact that you can do like secure notes and it's not just a password manager, it can really protect a lot of things securely.
Driver's license, passports.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it really kind of veers into that kind of territory of how comfortable are you putting all of this information into a third-party database? Because as we know, we're very used to hearing about, you know, data breaches and all this stuff. I think LastPass, from everything that I've heard and read and researched about it, does a pretty darn good job of securing this stuff on their end. Also, you know, setting two-factor authentication for accessing that. You can do a number of things to protect yourself even further. But, you know, before LastPass, I was really bad with my passwords. And now I feel pretty strongly about my passwords. So, I mean, even if there is a little bit of that, you know, the cost of security to convenience, I know that I'm stronger now because my passwords are healthier now than they were prior to LastPass. Because of that automatic password generation, it's really easy to bump that up and you know, bump that to 20 characters. And from that day forward, you know, as you set passwords or change passwords, I mean, they're all even more secure than they were the day before that. So,
although I will cop to one thing, I've gotten very lazy since I've gotten fingerprint recognition on all my devices, not just my phones, but on my laptops and on my desktop. I really like that, and I shouldn't because it's much easier to hack the fingerprint recognition on a device than it is to stop two-factor authentication with strong passwords. But that's just me and convenience, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bad person.
Well, I mean, you know,
just because you can't do everything doesn't mean you should do nothing.
Yes,
okay,
that's a really good
thank
point.
you. Thank you. I feel
That's
better
my
about myself.
belief about everything. And I do think this is like cleaning out your closet. It's like, you know, changing your storm windows, all the things you just have to regularly do. Look at your whatever password manager you use, clean it up, get rid of duplicates. You know, that's what LastPass does too. Like, it'll tell you, it'll go through all of your passwords and it'll show if there was a time in your life where you just you kept using the same password over and over again. It'll tell you and it'll let you clean that up. And just to make a little plug for the screensavers, we're doing the 10-week digital cleanse.
Yes.
And not this weekend, but next week, we're going to be cleaning up our passwords. So we're going to be cleansing our passwords. It's like drinking a giant glass of orange juice. And so, yeah, check
it's like
that
a
out.
digital kombucha.
Don't you love that that feeling of logging into an account that you haven't logged into for quite a while, and you're like, okay, was this the password that had the exclamation point at the end, or did I put a couple of periods? Or
oh man, that's my nightmare. One thing I will say about LastPass that I think turns a lot of people off initially is that it sounds like it's a lot of work to get started with it. And the beauty, I think, of LastPass and other password managers like this is you throw that add-on into your browser, and then from that point forward, as you log into sites normally like you would do anyways, it recognizes that and you have the chance to save it. So it's not like you're going through and like, I got to set aside 2 days straight to enter in my 500 passwords and IDs. Just set it up and let it work in the background. And now from that day forward, as you log in, it will start to save them slowly over time. And you'll build that library up quicker than you think.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit easier on an Android phone than it is on iOS. You can use the share sheet on your iPhone, but it is when we did do the switch, I noticed that Android does give you a lot more access into automatically filling your passwords in.
Yes, absolutely. And actually with Oreo, they've improved that even further, or at least they've attempted to improve that. I still have some complaints about it, but it's getting better slowly over time. They're building it even further into the OS, specifically for third-party password managers like LastPass.
You know, sometimes I wonder what would happen if Chrome just didn't auto-enter my passwords anymore. I couldn't do anything.
What would you do? I know,
do
yeah.
anything.
Yep.
Well, you could always change your password.
I could.
Yep.
Or if I were to set up two-factor authentication but have the second factor sent to a phone that I didn't have access to because it was protected by two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's done that.
I don't. If I had a collar, I'd pop it right now.
Okay, one last bit before we go. We're actually going over time. This one is super easy if you go to the cast, Alex. This is actually Credit Karma. I know a lot of you heard about this. We've actually had them as sponsors of the network. I actually like it. I don't do any of the purchased services, but the basic information that it can give you is actually quite good. When you log in, it's going to give you 2 different credit scores at the top of the screen. So I've got both my TransUnion and my Equifax credit scores. If you go to menu settings, check credit monitoring, it actually allows you to get a notification anytime your credit score changes, which again, I know we're already at notification fatigue, but this is important. If you've got a significant drop in your credit score, you need to know why. And we've already talked a little bit about some of the causes for this. Sometimes it means you have too many credit cards open. Sometimes it means you have outstanding debt. It might mean that someone who opened up a line of credit in your name has missed a payment and suddenly your credit score has dropped precipitously. So this is another good notification to have. And you know what you need to start doing is actually take advantage of some of these different companies that have been around for a while that give you really good details and control of your credit scores. And because, you know, you'll start learning why it is that, for example, here in the Credit Karma app, the fact that I've got good factors, and one of the reasons, some of the reasons why my credit is good is because I have a 100% payment history. I always pay. I never roll over. The age of my credit history is it's 16 years, almost 17 years. No hard inquiries within the last, 18 months or 12 months or however, how long it takes to cycle. And also no derogatory marks because there's been no creditors that have been mad at me. And a 2% credit card utilization. Here's actually another thing. If you always use your credit cards to the max, it's a negative. That's a mark against you. They don't want you to see you using so much of your credit score. In fact, your credit limit. What I will actually do sometimes is I will pay off more often than just when the payment is due. Mm-hmm. It actually happens 3 or 4 times per cycle just so I can keep that low. Now, if you go back to that screen, one of the things that you see in red here is the total number of accounts. So there's actually some active accounts that even though none of them are in the red, even though none of them are in arrears, they're open. And they don't like to see that. They don't like to see more than about 5 active accounts at any given time. And this is information that I get for free. And then I can also compare. See, look, these are 2 major credit unions, TransUnion and Equifax. And you'll notice that they score differently. This one, instead of almost 17 years, it says my credit history is only 14 years, 6 months. This has me at 0% credit card utilization, but 13 total accounts. So you owe it to yourself to go through this and figure out why this information is popping up, because the more you understand, the better you can plan for when you do want to make that big purchase or open up that big line of credit.
Very nice.
I think this was actually pretty good, right? Yeah, what we wanted to do is we wanted to give you, I know this is a very atypical know-how, but we wanted to give you some information about certain techniques, certain applications, certain technologies that you could put to work for you as you try to increase your credit rating and your credit score and protect yourself from fraud. Do you want to throw anything in before we draw close to this episode?
Nope.
Nope.
No, I think we pretty much covered it. I mean, you know, like you said earlier, if something like Equifax is a wake-up call for somebody, then at least there's some positive that might come out of it. You know, it's important to take this stuff very seriously, and sometimes it takes something like that to kind of wake you up.
Indeed.
Make you realize you need to protect yourself a little bit better than you have been.
Yeah. What he said.
Yeah.
All that. Folks, we know that this has been a lot of information. We want to make it easy for you to get this because this is important. I mean, this is not just a fun show. This is stuff you actually need to do. If you haven't set up a fraud alert, if you haven't set up a fraud alert, if you're not even doing basic monitoring of your credit reports, you need to start that. Unfortunately, this Equifax thing has pushed everything a bit more much into the forefront. So go out, take care of your finances. We want to make sure that you can get all this information at our show notes. Just go to twit.tv/KH. That's for know-how. There you'll find all of our back episodes and, more importantly, all of the links and the notes for today's episode. If you have any questions about what we talked about, if you have any concerns about how it might affect you, again, twit.tv/KH. And while you're there, if you like the show, if you like the information that we give you, why not subscribe? Get a version that you want into a device of your choice. Audio, video, high-definition video, and maybe even share it with your friends. Getting your friends and your family to watch the show is one of the best ways to support us and make sure that we can continue to give you all the know-how that you want. Also, don't forget that you can find us on the socials, specifically on Google+. That's right, we've got an active group, a super active group of almost, 12,000 users who are in there talking about maker and DIY projects, who are asking questions, answering questions. Just go to Google+, look for know-how. There's a very short approval process to keep out the spam accounts, but once you're in, you get access to all that knowledge. Post pictures, post videos, ask questions. Maybe your content will end up here on know-how. Also, don't forget that you can find us on Twitter. We're a very active Twitter family. You're going to find me at twitter.com/PadreSJ. Jason, where are you found?
At Jason Howell. Pretty easy.
And Megan?
I like to be found at Megan Maroney.
Yeah, and I also like to be found at Megan Maroney. Wait.
Cricket?
No, it didn't work.
That didn't work.
And don't forget that we actually have another member of our crew. We are so happy that he's back. He was roaming the Northwest trying to find the newest strains of con funk.
I think he was trying to find his, beard.
He's trying to find his beard. We call him Jimmy Joe. Jimmy Joe, where can we find you?
Excuse me, Padre, it's pronounced Alex.
Nah, that really doesn't
And
ring
you
a bell.
can follow me at Megan Maroney.
Oh, actually, one last bit. You got to do your plugs for the shows that you do here on the Twit TV network.
We together do Tech News Today. Please subscribe, twit.tv/TNT. Subscribe. If someone leaves their phone out on the counter, subscribe for them too.
Yeah.
I don't think it's against the law yet. Also, iOS Today, that is every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. I host that with Leo Laporte. Subscribe to that too, iOS, twit.tv/iOS.
And if iOS is not your bag and instead you like the Android things, then All About Android. That's also Tuesdays, 5:30 p.m. Pacific at twit.tv/AAA. That's the show page anyways.
Megan, Jason, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much. This has been fun. And until next time, I'm Father Robert Balaser, the digital Jesuit. And now that you know how,
Go do it.
what he said.